Okay, everyone, we'd like to call this meeting to order, our special city council meeting of the January 13th, 2026 to order. If you can all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Wait, I gotta do that. Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, moving on to our land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the Ohlone people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Ohlone elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Ohlone land, the land that Pinole sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Ohlone community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue to our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. Thank you. We are now on to item 3 of the agenda, roll call and city clerk's report. Madam City Clerk, if you will.
Good evening. Mayor Tave.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy.
Here.
Councilmember Sasai.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Here.
Councilmember Toms.
Here.
Acting City Manager Clahoun.
Here.
City Attorney Casher.
Here.
Mayor, the agenda was posted on Friday, January 9th at 11:30 a.m. with all legally required notices. There was an addition to item 8A, and a correction memo was distributed to council and posted online for the public to view. No written comments were received in advance of tonight's meeting. Does the council have any conflicts to report on our agenda items tonight? Seeing none, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, so I know that we are going to be taking items 4A, A, B, and C out of order. So that would be taking item 4 out of order. The council will convene to a closed session at the conclusion of the public portion of the agenda, following number 13, second citizens to be heard. All right, so moving on to item 5, or to item 6, citizens to be heard. Madam City Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Just checking online. No, Mayor, not at this time.
Okay, so we'll go on to item 7, recognition, presentations, and community events. So we'll start with proclamation honoring Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And I'll start us off. Give me 1 second. Whereas Dr. King came of age in the South during a time when racial discrimination was the law of the land, and whereas Black Americans risked jail time for accessing public accommodations like drinking fountains, parks, restrooms, restaurants, and hotels, their voting rights were denied by complicated, erroneous, and discriminatory rules, and
Whereas Dr. King imagined a different future for America, an America he called the beloved community. And whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. devoted his life to advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all, and challenged all Americans to participate in the never-ending work of building a more perfect union. And
Whereas his bold leadership and prophetic eloquence united people of all backgrounds in a noble quest for freedom and basic civil rights. And whereas Dr. King's teachings can continue to guide and inspire us in addressing challenges in our communities. And
whereas when basic voting rights are under attack in our country and people are being targeted in senseless hate crimes, it's crucial that we carry Dr. King's call to action forward and use our moral authority to stand up for what's right. And
whereas the King Day of Service is the only federal holiday commemorated as a national day of service and offers an opportunity for Americans to give back to their communities on the holiday and make an ongoing commitment to service throughout the year.
now, therefore, I, Anthony Tave, Mayor of the City of Pinole, County of Contra Costa, State of California, on behalf of the City Council and the entire City of Pinole, do hereby proclaim January 19th, 2026 as the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, and I encourage all Pinole citizens to observe this day with appropriate civic, community, and service programs in honor of Dr. King's life and legacy. Awesome. Okay, so we'll move on to the National Day of Racial Healing. Whereas the National Day of Racial Healing was created and hosted by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation in 2017, and
whereas this special day is an opportunity for people, organizations, and communities to call for racial healing, bring people together in their shared humanity, and take action together to create a more just and equitable world, and
Whereas this annual event builds on the work and learnings of the truth, racial healing, and transformation with which many universities lead the charge, and whereas fundamental to this day is the clear understanding that racial healing is at the core of racial equity. This day is observed every year on the Tuesday following Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and
Whereas communities across the country will observe the National Day of Racial Healing in unique and meaningful ways by taking action that supports the National Day of Racial Healing. And whereas everyone can bring racial healing into their homes, communities, and institutions. And
Whereas the responsibility belongs to all of us to participate in these honest, powerful, and moving experiences and pursue this journey together. Through racial healing, we can all forge deep, meaningful relationships, lay the groundwork to transform broken systems, and create a world in which together we are a new force for positive change.
now therefore I, Anthony Tave, Mayor of the City of Pinole, County of Contra Costa, State of California, on behalf of the City Council and the entire City of Pinole, do hereby proclaim January 20th, 2026 as the National Day of Racial Healing. And I encourage all Pinole citizens to observe this day by showing your support for racial healing. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Holocaust Remembrance Day, January 27, 2026. Whereas Holocaust Remembrance Day each year on January 27th, the world remembers one of the most horrific events in modern history. And
whereas this tragic event is known as the Holocaust. The Holocaust occurred during World War II when Nazi Germany killed millions of innocent victims. And whereas on Holocaust Day of Remembrance, we remember the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. And
whereas the date marks the anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration and extermination camp of Auschwitz-Birkenau by Soviet troops on the 27th of January, 1945, and
whereas it was designated by United Nations General Assembly Resolution 67 on November 1st, 2005. The resolution came after a special session was held earlier that year on January 24th to mark the 60th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi concentration camps and the end of the Holocaust. And
whereas in a time of increased anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, we should be more vigilant in ensuring that people of all ages are educated about these crimes against humanity, and whereas we should remain forever vigilant against hatred, persecution, and tyranny.
now therefore I, Anthony Tave, Mayor of the City of Pinole, County of Contra Costa, State of California, on behalf of the City Council and the entire City of Pinole, do hereby proclaim January 27th, 2026 as Holocaust Day of Remembrance, and I encourage all Pinole citizens to observe this day and pause to remember victims and survivors of the Holocaust. Right. Yep. This say these are all very well written proclamations, so I want to thank staff and council for putting these together. Just want to say it's important for us to remember and to honor Reverend Martin Luther King and really pay attention to a lot of these holidays because they have meaning. So I just really want to encourage everybody to celebrate and to show their remembrance. So, okay, thank you for the proclamations. Next, we will be moving on to presentations. We have item B, 7B, presentations, Republic Services Post-Collection Agreement 2026 rates by Executive Director Cliff Feldman. Next on the agenda, I'm reading the other piece. So, Public Services, go ahead.
Honorable Mayor, Good evening. I would like to introduce Cliff Feldman. He's the executive director of Recycle More. He will be presenting information today on the post-collection agreement with Republic Services and rates for this calendar year. I also would like to introduce Reka Ibrahim, sitting in the back. She is the Deputy Executive Director and the Regulatory Manager. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. My name is Cliff Feldman. I'm Executive Director of the West Contra Costa Integrated Waste Management Authority, which is otherwise known as our brand name, Recycle More. And I appreciate the opportunity to provide this presentation tonight. I want to give you an update on the agency and rate setting and where things stand at present. Next slide, please. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of a recap of the mission and purpose of the agency. So your solid waste recycling and compost collection and processing utility for your residents and businesses consists of, by and large, two agreements. One is your collection services franchise agreement you have directly with Republic Services, and the other is the post-collection agreement, which Recycle More Joint Powers Authority also has with Republic Services. These are both 15-year agreements. The post-collection agreement was executed just recently. It was approved last November, and your franchise agreement was, I believe, approved about a year or so ago in the fall of '24. Next slide, please. So the JPA consists of 5 cities, of which includes your city, Hercules, Richmond, El Cerrito, San Pablo, and unincorporated areas of the county. And we manage the post-collection agreement. As I said, we are the primary signatory to that agreement. We manage all aspects of it. Next slide, please. The agreement is by and large a continuation of the prior post-collection agreement, which provides the essential services of what do you do with all the stuff that's collected by Richmond Sanitary Service? Where does it go and how is it processed? Well, the company has facilities in Richmond that provide compost collection service, compost processing service, materials recovery facility for recycling processing, and a transfer station to move the solid waste to a landfill. So all the material that's collected on the routes is brought to those facilities under the auspices of this agreement. So by and large, as I said, this is a continuation of the post-collection services that have been provided through this agreement in the past. Next slide, please. In addition, in this current agreement, we've included some value-added provisions. A very key one is the compost procurement requirements that are mandated via SB 1383, which I'm sure you've heard more about than you'd care to admit to. And it allows us a certain amount of compost at no charge through the company via this contract, which would by and large amount to, if you were to avail yourselves of that compost, help you significantly meeting your compost procurement needs. In addition, there's some reporting compliance. We'll continue the student-led tours, and there's an extended producer responsibility cost assurance, which is pertinent because of a new bill known as SB 54, which is basically ensuring that the plastics producers begin to pay for the handling and processing of plastic products. And it's going to be a sweeping law once the regulations, which we're all waiting with bated breath to come out, which I just heard went back to the Office of Administrative Law Review, transferred those back to CalRecycle, so we're all kind of back into a holding pattern. So SB 54 will be coming in the horizon, and I'd love to come back to your council, give you updates on that as we proceed. So next slide, please. Related to the PCA, this is the primary crux of the expense associated with the PCA, what was negotiated. And for the first 3 years, we have a fixed cost for the actual, what we call the cost per ton that the company will charge us. So for the current year, it's $158.41, and for the next 2 years, it will go up 10% per year. In addition, this $158.41 represents a 10% increase over the cost of around $144, which commenced at the beginning of the year on January 1. on July 1 of last year. After that, we have 3 years of a CPI cap, and in year 7, it gets a little more complicated, whereas the cap goes to 6%. However, the company is entitled to a one-time true-up for lack of a better way to put it, the amount left on the table above the 5% for the previous 3 years. However, this is a one-time adjustment and will not compound for the remaining years of the contract. And I'll be more than happy to get into this as much as you want. It is a fairly complicated model when I'm speaking quickly and presenting it to you for the first time, so I'd be more than happy to get into the nuances of it. But by and large, the goal was to ensure that we could have some rate certainty for the ensuing first 5 or 6 years of this agreement, given the substantial increase between the post-collection agreement and your new collection services franchise agreement. That was one of the goals of the negotiations. Next slide, please. So the post-collection agreement translates to a blended per ton rate, which in essence is the cost that ratepayers, whether it be residents or businesses, pay or obligated to pay Republic Services for every ton of stuff that's picked up and delivered to their facilities. So the total blended per ton rate for this year, as you can see in the first column, there is $158.41, which is, again, is a 10% increase over the current, and that makes up roughly 81% of the overall blended per ton rate cost. The government fees are, by and large, Republic's environmental and regulatory fees that they pay, by and large, to the county, given their facilities are within Contra Costa County. The HHW program is the program that the authority manages via the post-collection agreement that's operated by the company at its facilities over in Richmond on Pittsburgh Avenue. And the authority budget, which makes up roughly 6.4% of the overall per ton rate, is about 6.4%. And so just to give you some context, the authority budget itself translates to roughly about 2% of your overall rate cost, right? Because this is roughly about 1/3, a little less than 1/3 of the overall system cost is encapsulated here. And your post-collection agreement projected cost for this year is roughly $2.6 million. That's what it's going to cost to process all the materials that get picked up. That's, by and large, the obligation, the way the contract is set up, and that's based on the prior year's tonnage of delivery, of which you had almost 16,000 tons of material. So, next slide, please. So this is a little bit of the insider math, which I tried to boil down to be fairly simple, because while it is kind of their complex nuances, it is fairly simple math. We take that blended per ton rate, which consists of the 4 cost components, and we multiply that by the total tons. Well, this service area generated roughly 165,000 total tons that went into the calculation to develop the rates this year. That blended per ton rate of $195 times the 165,000 tons comes out to roughly $32 million. Well, we take that $32 million, the revenue requirement, and then we divide that into your service levels. How many 32-gallon cart customers, how many 1 cubic yard bin customers, 2 cubic yard bin customers, and it's equitably distributed throughout the rate base, which then results into the post-collection rate, hence a rate increase. So I'll just pause there. Any questions on that equation? Sure.
Yes, I have a question, just to, so our public knows. The blended per ton rate is based on the weight of green waste, the green bin and the blue bin, or are we also including the black bin in those weight numbers?
Sure. Go back one slide, please. So the blended per ton rate is applied to every ton of material the same. So whether it's a ton of compost or a ton of disposal in the black bin, the cost is the same, and the same with recycling. So no matter what the tonnage is, this blended per ton rate pays for all of that material delivered to the facility by the collection company.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So we take the revenue requirement, divide it into the service levels, and that's how we get the post-collection rate. Next slide, please. Which translate to roughly a little more than a 3% increase. Again, this 3% increase on the 2026 cost is solely related to the new contract, the post-collection agreement. You had rate increases associated with collection services and the post-collection agreement in the past, but there was no collection services increase that started on January 1 this year. So this 3%, again, is solely related to the post-collection agreement. Next slide, please. And I apologize. The number of this example is about 16 cents off. There was a rounding issue. But on the commercial sector, it's roughly a little bit more than about a 2% increase for the new agreement as well, related to the post-collection. Next slide, please. To give you some context, because I think at the beginning and the end of the day, it's from my perspective, it's not really about what the post-collection costs or the collection costs. What is the impact on your ratepayers? That's how I look at it, and that's the value proposition that we intend to always deliver. And that is the combined rate. And so if you look at this, the overall average is roughly about $53, and your current rate is right in that $55 range. So it's very close to the average. But keep in mind, this average includes the cities of Moraga, Lafayette, Walnut Creek, Danville, which are represented by our sister joint powers authority in the county, known as Recycle Smart. And those rates are going to go up roughly about 29% in March of 2027 because of the procurement, the competitive procurement that they went through. And they have 6 contracts now that all the services, several for processing and a couple for collection, and they're looking at a huge rate increase of, close to that 30% when those contracts commence in March of 2027. So they're a little more than a year away from their rates significantly going up, which is going to increase this average, and you'll be right in or at below the average. And I also just wanted to point out that these 20, 25, 30% increases over time related to SB 1383 in the last 3, 5, 6 years are very commonplace throughout cities across California because SB 1383 has required significant unfunded mandates, sweeping changes, and processing enhancements for composting and recycling and so forth. And so you are not alone facing large rate increases, which now hopefully we've got to the peak of it and we'll have that rate certainty like I tried to convey by keeping pretty certain rates for the next 5 years in the fixed price increase and then a 5% cap for 3 years. So next slide, please. And a similar situation in Alameda County where the average is right about that same $53 or so. So next slide, please. So that's my presentation on the post-collection agreement and the rates, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions on this or any garbage talk you might want to throw my way.
So we'll take questions from council. Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Is this agreement similar to a franchise agreement that required public notice?
I think the public notice you're referring to is related to a rate increase related to Proposition 218. Is what I'm surmising you're saying. And no, because this is a post-collection agreement managed by our agency, it did not require the sending out a notice to each individual residence and looking for the protest vote via that ballot. And if you get 51%, you can increase the rates. That's the Prop 218 process. Right. This was precluded from that process.
All right, thank you.
Just as a side, what was the exemption outside of the 218 that would say you? I guess what are the rationale behind that?
Oh, I don't want to play attorney on the answer to that. It's my understanding that the way the government code is set up, that because it is not the service that's provided directly to the residents, it's a component of the service on the collection side, it's precluded from doing that Prop 218 notice.
I see. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Councilmember Martinez-Rubin online?
Yes, hello, thank you. Good to meet you and thanks for your presentation. The question I have is related to the note on your cost adjustment schedule. It's where you qualified it by saying there will be more to come given the eventual changes or updates to SB 54. But nonetheless, I'd like to understand better and speak a little bit more colloquially as to what the note means with regard to the impact, quote, on the ratepayer.
I didn't. If I said that SB 54 was going to cost the ratepayers more money, I misspoke. I didn't mean to allude to that. The cost increases related to the post-collection agreement were contained in that one table. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, not quite. Can we turn to the slide, please, so I can take a look at the note that's at the bottom of that schedule? And then it's that particular statement that I'd like to understand a little better.
I believe it's slide 7. Was that the slide?
No, it's the one that has a header cost adjustment schedule.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go one slide prior, slide 6. My apologies.
Yeah, so note number 2.
Yes. So number 2 applies to one specific year of the contract, and that is year 7 in 2032. So if you note, the first 3 years of the agreement, there's a fixed adjustment for their specific processing cost, and then there's a 5% cap on the CPI for the ensuing 3 years. Well, in year 7, that's where that footnote applies. And if, let's say, in year 2029, the CPI was 5.6%, okay? In year 7, the company would be entitled to recoup the 0.6% it wasn't awarded in year 2029 as a one-time cost adjustment, right? But that would not compound on the overall number, which would then populate the column that's associated with the future CPI. So it's a one-time cost adjustment. It doesn't compound.
Thank you. That was the broader explanation I needed to understand better. Thank you so much.
Okay, we'll go to public comment for this item.
Yes, we do have Rafael Menace online.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. I was expecting these items to go up later given the ordering of closed session, so that's why I'm not present in person. I'm also locked into my room a bit by construction, so apologies if you hear a noise of, construction going on in the background. I have some questions about the slide that was just displayed, the material-specific cost adjustment schedule. Some parts of the presentation cut out due to internet issues, again, due to construction. So if these were already explained during the presentation, my apologies. But it looks like, based on Table 1, that the cost adjustment schedule is going to be shifted from a fixed rate increase to a percentile rate increase based on CPI. But the first thing I'm unclear on is whether that's going to be strictly linked to CPI. In other words, if CPI is 2% in a given year, the allowable percent increase would be 2%, or whether that's a cap. So if CPI is 6%, it can only be 5%, but if it's 2%, it can still be 5%. So that's my first question. And then my second question is, it looks like the allowable percent increase itself increases over time. And I'm curious as to the reasoning for that, because unless we're expecting for inflation, it's the rate of inflation itself to increase from 2031 to 2032, 2032 to 2033, and 2033 to 2034. I would expect that the percentile increase by default would be accounting for inflation. So that ties back to the first question that I get, because if it's just the ceiling on what rate increase can be done, then I guess it's just an expectation of higher potential inflation in the future. But if it's a floor on what increase can be done, and it feels like it's going to need to be, rather than 5% year over year, it's going to need to be 7% or 8%, then I'd like some clarification as to why the allowable percentage increases over the lifetime of the schedule, basically, because it seems like a 5% year over year increase is already pretty substantial, and up to 6, 7, 8% towards the end of the schedule. But it could be that I misinterpreting the schedule, so that's why I'm asking the question. Thank you.
Sure. To answer your first question, the percentages represented are the caps placed on the applicable CPI for each year. So I think that answers your first question. And the reason why the percentages went up from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8% was that was what was negotiated between the authority and Republic Services. And the rationale the company had for, well, the rationale the company had for, first of all, increasing its rate from $98 per ton to $144 per ton, which was a significant increase, was because in the ending years of its prior agreement, their costs far surpassed the inflationary adjustment that was afforded them in the prior agreement. So, again, I'm just answering you honestly, based on our experience, what we were told by the company, that they did not want to have another contract where they were not getting their cost adjustments related to inflation in the latter years of the agreement. So this was a schedule that was negotiated, and our goal, our primary goal, was really to keep rates down for the ensuing 5 or 6 years of the agreement, given the significant increases that have been imposed on the ratepayers in the recent year and a half. So I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Sorry about that.
There are no more public comments.
All right. So public comments are done. We'll bring it back to council. Guess we'll move on. Great. So we're on to consent calendar. So item 8.
Oh, real quick, Mayor, I was just going to make
Yeah.
a couple comments. if
Oh,
that's
please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Feldman, for your presentation. I do want to just acknowledge and appreciate the fact that it feels probably like it's been 10 years, but you just started, so congratulations. It was what, last June or July?
July, yes.
July. So just want to commend you on your leadership as this was a big endeavor, and I know it wasn't easy. So I just wanted to thank you, and thank you for coming to Pinole to kind of talk to our council. You know, the PCA's continued support of so many programs, including the hazardous waste, the continued school tours, and public education. I know in the deepness of your work, it's a lot about SB 1813. It's a lot about, you know, those things, but those additional services that we get through the PCA agreement, I think, are really critical. And I just wanted to, again, thank you, but also ensure that the ratepayers know that your funds are, of course, towards these kind of large SB 1383 programs, but they're also supporting a lot of educational and public education program. And so I just wanted to note that. You'll have to forgive me. I left my computer at the office today, so I'm on my phone for my notes. Probably should have got a notebook like you. I wanted to also uplift, you know, I think that as we look at these numbers, and even with these increases, that the city of Pinole's 35-gallon rate is still remaining to the countywide median, which is lower than cities including El Cerrito and Richmond, and also comparable to West County. And so I just wanted to also note, again, for the record, but also for the public, that, you know, this context does matter. You know, residents do deserve to know how Pinole compares regionally. And so, again, just noting that these numbers are really important, and I'm glad to see that we're at that county median, and not too high, not too low. Of course, you know, our role as a council member, but also, you know, within Recycle More, is always to ensure that PCA, while long-term and has rate predictability, also has the responsibility of ensuring that our provider, Republic Services, meets our standards. And of course, you know, those of us who understand, of course, the value of SB 1813 do want to see it both funded from the state level, but we want to see that work done at the local level. And so just noting that, you know, as we continue our partnership together, it will be great to, of course, see these public-facing reports around, you know, diversion rates, of course, and contamination levels, but also those projected versus, actual operating costs. And so just continuing to look forward to that. Would really love your partnership and with our staff staff, of course, understanding and teaching both the council but also our public about these numbers and these stats, because I think this is one of those things that certainly when I was first elected in 2020, I had to learn a lot about. And I had a colleague next to me, our mayor, who certainly had a lot of conversations with about these. So I just want to say, again, thank you for your leadership. I think looking forward, I'm really excited to, center our residents, ensuring, a lot around these environmental outcomes. I think they're really important, not just, again, for our city, but obviously regionally. And as we move towards the work that we do as a city and also our regional partners, just thinking about ways that we can support collaboration, but also the reporting and oversight that's necessary for our ratepayers to feel confident in our work. And of course, Mayor Tave, I did want to say thank you to you as well. You served as chair of Recycle More Board in the past year, and I think well, I'm speaking for you. I shouldn't, but I'm sure it was hard. It wasn't easy. I mean, this is a 15-year, agreement, and you, what I know from our colleagues in other cities is that you've done a lot of work to have those conversations, tough conversations. A lot of patience you have, of course, and just wanted to commend you on your leadership on that board as well. So I'm really glad to see this report, and just thank you again for coming to Pinole.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments from council? Councilmember Martinez-Rubin?
Thank you. No. Have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, Director Feldman, for the presentation, and look forward to see you soon. Thanks. Okay, moving on to item 8, consent calendar. Let's see, is there any public comment for consent?
Just checking online. No, there's no public comments.
Okay, would any council members like to pull any items? I know we only have one.
No, I'll move approval of item 8A.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second. City Clerk? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Tave,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Murphy,
Aye.
Councilmember Sasai,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez-Rubin,
Yes.
Councilmember Toms.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. So we have next public hearings. There are no public hearings, no old business, and no new business, which brings us to item 12, citizens to be heard, our second citizens to be heard. And it's for those who have not, any citizens who have not spoken during the first citizens to be heard.
Yes, we do have Rafael Menace online.
All right. Good evening, I guess, at this point. Council, staff, members of the public. My name is Rafael Menace. I'm a resident of Pinole. And I have two topics I'd like to discuss tonight. First, the rate of COVID-19 in Contra Costa County generally, as based on wastewater data, the most recent wastewater data, appears to be very low in contrast to several other parts of the country, in which it's been increasing sharply over the few months. So I would still encourage people to get vaccinated, to get the booster shot, because it's generally protective. But overall risk is less than it's historically been this time of year. I'm not entirely sure why our state and region generally has a lower rate than the nation as a whole, and I don't know how long that will last for, but I feel like it is worth noting. And if you'd like to check this for yourself, you could go to www.cdc.gov/NWSS. And then they'll give you an option to go to state and territory trends, you go to California, and then there's both a line chart showing trends over time as well as current side levels, which shows. The other point I'd bring up is there's one outlier, which may be a data collection error or something else going on. I don't know. But there is one site in Alameda County that has a very high activity level its first sample was collected in November of last year. So it's possible it's just an issue with the data collection process, given that every single other site in Contra Costa and Santa Clara and Alameda and San Francisco counties and so on is at the very low level, but I still feel it's worth highlighting. And finally, I'd like to request that the council adjourn tonight's meeting in the memory of Renee Colgood, who was killed by an ICE in Minnesota. Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment?
There are no more public comments.
This is to be heard, I'm sorry. Thank you. So we'll move on to convene the closed session for the closed session items A, B, and C. Let me read those out. So item A is conference with labor negotiators, Government Code 54957.6, agency designated representatives, Human Resource Director Stacy Shell, Finance Director Marquisha Guillory, and Gregory Ramirez, IEDA, employee organizations, the Pinole Police Employees Association. Item B is conference with labor negotiations, Government Code 54957.6, acting city manager. And then item C is conference with labor negotiations, Government Code 54957.6, title interim city manager. Okay, so we'll convene to closed session and then be back. I want to say maybe, no time limit.
No, we'll adjourn. You'll adjourn
Oh, we'll
in
adjourn
closed session.
Got it. Okay, thanks everybody.